Dave Chappelle has literally become a person that I can say is taking control of his life and wants full control of everything that he has put out there content wise, especially after this latest move that he just pulled. So, as we all know, Dave Chappelle has a Netflix special on a Netflix special, a special on Netflix. He might have a couple, to be quite honest. I'm not sure, but I know he has one for certain. But he has just gone to Netflix and, upon his own request, not at the demands of Netflix, has told Netflix to pull his special off of their streaming service until ViacomCBS pays him for the licensing of his show. So basically, it looks like ViacomCBS was not paying him the money he was supposed to get. And he says, okay, fine. Well, pull my show down, and until they start paying, then and only then it will go back up. Now, that's a good look for him, but not a good look for Netflix, because Netflix has to have the ratings. And Dave Chappelle is one of those comedians that has some of the highest ratings on that platform. As a matter of fact, Dave Chappelle has positioned himself to be probably one of the most iconic comedians of our time. And, there's only, you only have a few comedians that come out every few years that actually stand the test of time, because some come in, then they go. But Dave Chappelle has been doing his thing since the 90s, as far as I know. I think the first time I ever seen Dave Chappelle was probably in The Nutty Professor, and that was back in 1996. And ironically, that was a movie that was starring Eddie Murphy, another, of course, iconic comedian. And I guess I'm gonna be a little bit biased here. He is a DMV native. He is from DC. So, it's like something there. And he's also worked with other iconic comedians. I remember he was in that movie Blue Streak with Martin Lawrence. So I like that he takes certain roles that has him working alongside other famous and iconic comedians, and he also has carved out a lane for himself. But it was right around the 2003-2004 time when he did the Chapelle Show, which is where the world got to see Dave Chappelle be Dave Chappelle. That's when he became more mainstream. But as of late, with his stand-up shows, now the world gets to see another side of Dave Chappelle, where he still maintains his comedic skills, but also brings his raw material to it, to the point where he is in such heavy demand wherever he goes. And that's someone that is, like I said, who has now transcended into legendary status. But what I wanted to talk about today is the fact that Dave Chappelle is telling ViacomCBS, look, y'all supposed to be paying me. Y'all haven't been paying me either what I'm owed or paying me the amount of money you said you was going to pay me. So, yeah, we have some things to discuss. And ironically, Monique had her falling out with Netflix a couple years ago, and we all know how that went. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Dave Chappelle had made it clear that he did not approve of ViacomCBS licensing his Comedy Central series Chapelle Show without paying him a dime. The comedian spoke about it during his recent Saturday Night Live monologue, and now he has done something about it. In a video titled Unforgiven, which was posted on Instagram this morning, Chappelle says that he had asked Netflix, where he has a deal for stand-up specials, to take Chappelle's show, which the streamer had licensed on a non-exclusive basis, off the service. Netflix has honored Chappelle's request and removed the show overnight last night. A rep for the streamer confirmed to Deadline. Of course they were going to take it off, because Dave Chappelle has made Netflix a lot of money and brought in a lot of new subscribers, because people are looking forward to seeing what he says. That monologue he did on Saturday Night Live has made people want to work with him, because he tells the raw truth. And that's what's needed nowadays. We don't need too much more of this politically correct BS that they love to feed to the masses. We need someone who's going to keep it real, and all the way real, and not backpedal when they feel like someone's coming at them. And I feel that Dave Chappelle is that person. One of a few. I can't say several, but I'll say a few. The show began streaming on Netflix in the U.S. on November 1st, so it hasn't even been. So they didn't even stream Chappelle's show, not even an entire month before he said pull it. Chappelle's show, owned by ViacomCBS, is still available on the company's Comedy Central and CBS All Access outlets, and was also recently licensed by HBO Max. Companies that license a program by the seller, program pay the seller, who in turn has to compensate the creators of the show. People think I made a lot of money from Chappelle's show, Chappelle says in a video filmed during a recent stand-up set, in which he reminisces about his comedy career. When I left that show, I never got paid. They, as in ViacomCBS, didn't have to pay me because I signed the contract. But is that right? I found out that these people were streaming my work and they never had to ask me, or they never have to tell me. Perfectly legal because I signed the contract. But is that right? I didn't think so either. That's why I like working for Netflix. I like working for Netflix because when all those bad things happened to me, that company didn't even exist. And when I found out that they were streaming Chappelle's show, I was furious. How could they not? How could they not know? So you know what I did? I called them and I told them that this makes me feel bad. And you want to know what they did? They agreed that they would take it off the platform just so I could feel better. That's why I fuck with Netflix, because they paid me my money. They do what they said they're going to do, and they went above and beyond what you could expect from a businessman. They did something just because they thought that I might think that they were wrong. And I do. I think that if you're fucking streaming that show, you're fencing stolen goods. Chappelle repeated his appeal to fans, which he also made on SNL earlier this month. So I'm not going to the agents. I'm coming to my real boss. I'm coming to you. I'm begging you. If you ever liked me, if you ever think that was anything worthwhile about me, I'm begging you, please don't watch that show. I'm not asking you to boycott any network. Boycott me. Boycott Chappelle's show. Do not watch it unless they pay me. Now that's interesting. He's telling the people to boycott the show on that network. Well, on Netflix, but they've already pulled it by that time. And he says, don't boycott Netflix, just boycott me. It is very rare that somebody tells somebody else or somebody's else to boycott them. Usually it's the other way around, where someone's telling you to boycott something else. But he's saying Netflix hasn't done me wrong, so I wouldn't want you to say boycott Netflix. It's interesting, though, that Netflix actually honored his wishes. But like I said, Dave Chappelle has brought the streaming service that is known as Netflix a lot of subscribers and ratings. And besides, they already in hot water with the whole Monique situation. So, they don't want another situation with Dave Chappelle, especially since Dave Chappelle seems to be a huge cash cow for them. Chappelle was the co-creator, executive producer, and star of Chappelle's Show, which had an abbreviated but very successful run on Comedy Central from 2003 to 2006. Netflix has been Chappelle's home for 4 years with a deal for stand-up specials. I can't even be mad at him. He's like, look, if y'all know you have to pay me, don't try to skimp out on that contract. But CBS, first off, look at who owned Viacom. It used to be Sumner Redstone, but he kicked the can earlier this year. And then Les Moonves, or as Professor Black Truth calls him, Lester Moonves. Look at what he did to Janet Jackson's career after that Super Bowl incident back in 2004. It's some dirty politics that goes on over at CBS. And speaking of Les Moonves, we haven't heard about him in like 2 years. The last time we heard about him, he skipped town or was working on some kind of other studio that was left kind of underground. And then, his wife, Julie Chen, she came on cold for him, but had no problem throwing others under the bus. But when the fire came about her husband, she bowed out gracefully, and we ain't seen her since. I don't even know if she's still on Big Brother, but who cares? But shout out to Dave Chappelle. Like I said, this is someone who's taking control of his life, because he could have easily just rolled over and let them do whatever. But he said, no, you got to pay me. So Netflix, until they do, I do not want my Chappelle Show to be running on this network. And that's unfortunate, because there's a lot of people who like the Chappelle Show, whether they was around when it was on, or you may have a crop of new fans, especially those who are just getting introduced to Dave Chappelle now. People may want to show them, or they want to go back and look at where he was still early on in his career. Like, this is a guy who got a whole show before a lot of comedians that were out way longer than him. That's crazy to think about that. But we all know, we all heard the stories as to why he dropped the show. So we don't have to rehash that. We know why that is. But kudos to Dave Chappelle. Too bad there's not many more out there like him. But you know, it is what it is. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.